President Donald Trump is once again pushing back against the Russia investigation today. Special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into possible collusion with Russia in the 2016 election. President Trump argues there was no obstruction, just him fighting back. In a series of tweets this morning, Mr. Trump continued to call the probe a, quote, witch hunt, claimed Democrats were in charge of it, despite Mueller being a Republican, and urged Republicans not to let it impact the midterm elections. This comes as his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, continues his media blitz. In an interview on Sunday, Giuliani said the president doesn't have to comply if he is subpoenaed in the investigation. He also said he was not confident the president would not take the fifth. But he did add he still hopes they can work something out with Robert Mueller. Joining me now is Gabe Debenedetti. He is a national correspondent for New York Magazine. Gabe, thanks so much for being with us. Does this fly, saying, look, I'm the president and I'm just fighting back?
Not really, not at least in the court of law, but that's not where he's fighting right now. He's trying to win over people politically. He understands that a lot of what's happening right now is really a public relations battle. But this is more or less what he's been saying for months now, if not for a year and a half, really, as soon as this conversation started.
Now, we heard Giuliani say over the weekend that he was not sure that President Trump would not take the fifth. Now, we also know that during his campaign, he came down pretty heavily on Hillary Clinton, saying taking the fifth would be essentially an admission of guilt. So where does he stand on this now? Not
only that, but you had him and people around him essentially saying, listen, if you're being investigated by the FBI, you're a bad guy. We don't hear him saying anything like that anymore. And it's sort of a bizarre situation. We don't know where any of this stands right now because Rudy Giuliani appears to be the main legal spokesman. But then you have Trump the other day saying, well, Rudy's new to the job, give him some time. So we don't know what we can rely on here.
And speaking of Rudy Giuliani, he seems to keep muddying the waters. I mean, over this weekend, he tried to clarify or was asked to clarify more details over that $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels. Was he able to clarify anything?
I certainly don't understand it any better than I did a few days ago. We've now, because of reporting, we understand that Donald Trump did know about the payments earlier than he led on, and that he had sort of in some ways directed Michael Cohen or talked with Michael Cohen about making these payments. That's not necessarily what Giuliani said, but then Trump seemed to walk it back. So this is all a long way of saying we don't really know what the state of play is.
And so at this point, is Giuliani's TV presence hurting or helping the case?
It's certainly not helping the case in any straightforward way, unless you take muddying the waters to be helping the case, in which, which is possible because, of course, people aren't really sure how to feel about this. But in terms of a, straightforward legal strategy, I don't think we're necessarily seeing that play out.
No, absolutely not. All right, let's switch gears for a moment. I want to talk about the West Virginia Republican primary. There is a tweet from the president today: to the great people of West Virginia, we have together a really great chance to keep making a big difference. Problem is, Don Blankenship, currently running for Senate, can't win in the general election in your state. No way. Remember Alabama. Now, we've discussed Don Blankenship, but remind our viewers why he's a controversial figure.
Well, he's a very controversial figure. He's a longtime coal baron in the state, so everyone knows who he is, but he was just in jail a year ago for a year for his role in a mine explosion in 2010 that killed 29 miners. He used to be seen as a villain in the state, but now he's running and seems to be doing pretty well in this primary for a Senate seat. Now, this should be a seat that Republicans should win fairly easily. It's held by a Democrat in a state that Donald Trump won by 42 points. But Blankenship, who's not only, was just in prison, but is also going after Mitch McConnell for having a Chinese family, it's gotten pretty ugly overall. And now Trump is finally saying, listen, we can't let this guy go, or else Joe Manchin, the senator, is going to keep his seat.
And how is Blankenship responding to this? I mean, to have the president come out and say, buddy, the Republican Party doesn't need you. What's the response?
Blankenship's kind of trying to have it both ways. He's saying Trump doesn't know what he's talking about, but it's not Trump's fault. It's the establishment's fault. It's a tried and true, playbook at this point for Republican insurgent candidates. But he's saying, listen, I'm more Trumpy than Trump, so vote for me.
Well, Trump is not the only one, tweeting against him. Senator Jeff Flake also tweeted, the problem isn't that Don Blankenship can't win a general election in West Virginia. It's that he shouldn't win a general election in West Virginia. A lot of people feel that it just goes beyond whether or not he can win. He shouldn't be in this election.
Absolutely. What you're seeing here from someone like Flake is sort of a twofer. He's going not only against Don Blankenship, but against Donald Trump, saying, let's not make this about tactics. Let's make this about morality and what the kind of person we should have in the Senate is. Don Blankenship is a convicted criminal who's now out there spewing what a lot of people are calling pretty racist things about Mitch McConnell.
And even in West Virginia, isn't he known as the man who, rightly or wrongly, was involved in the deaths of all those coal miners?
Absolutely. That is what he's been very well known for 8 years now. And he's been out there ever since he left jail, and even when he was in prison, actually, trying to save his reputation for about a year or two now. And he's trying to basically blame this on the Obama administration. He's trying to say the others are out to get me. And some people are starting to buy it. As of 2 years ago, just 10% of West Virginians viewed him favorably. And now he might be their Senate nominee.
Now, we have seen other candidates try to go the route of saying, I'm more Trump than Trump.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that work out too well for them. Is Trump the only one who can get away with being Trump?
Well, Blankenship is certainly testing the limits of that. But what we have seen is the people who are trying to run as more Trump than Trump, they've actually been winning their primaries. So it works in Republican electorates. It does not necessarily work overall. When you look at Roy Moore or look at in the Pennsylvania special election earlier this year, Rick Saccone, they both said, I'm Trumpier than Trump. They both lost.
Right. All right. So let's switch gears once again and talk about the Iran nuclear deal, which is set to expire this weekend. We did see Rudy Giuliani again on the weekend talk shows make a sort of symbol that suggested that he would tear up any Iran nuclear deal.
Yeah.
Are we any closer to knowing where the president stands on this?
I don't know if Rudy Giuliani is any closer to knowing where the president stands on this at this point, but I also don't know if the president knows where he's going to end up on this. He's been railing against the Iran deal for years now, but of course it's still in place. One thing that I think we should watch, though, is, and he tweeted about this a bit earlier, there was a Boston Globe report last week that John Kerry is going around trying to save the deal sort of behind the scenes. Now, that did not sit well with Trump, who's now out there basically saying, this is illegal. Kerry can't be out there doing this.
Right.
That might actually work against the Iran deal in the end.
Now, what about Boris Johnson, though? He's also coming out trying to save the deal.
Yeah, so you're getting a lot of pressure from all sides here. Trump is certainly being pressured by people who were with him during the campaign and people who are sort of hardliners on this saying, you've been saying that you're against this deal from day one. It's time to finally just get rid of it.
Right.
But you have now international people, international diplomats trying to say, this isn't as bad as you think it is.
Are you hearing anything from the international community that perhaps, the rest of the European community will try to figure out a way to help Trump save face while still remaining in this deal?
Yeah, that's certainly the way that they've been talking about this. But the reality is that they're still trying to figure out how to deal with Trump. Right now, clearly, you have Boris Johnson going out there talking to TV shows, trying to do the public pushing, which is what a lot of, Republican senators try to do when they're trying to get Trump's attention. So what we're seeing play out in real time here is you have people out there trying to pressure him in public. You saw Benjamin Netanyahu, for example, essentially put on a TV special trying to get Trump to get out of the deal over in Israel. So there are all sorts of different tactics being used here. And I hate to be so vague about it, but we have no idea what's going to work because it's not necessarily clear if Trump has any idea what's going to work.
Gabe Debenedetti, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.